Mr. Trump will be the first former president to face criminal charges. A Manhattan grand jury indicted Donald J. Trump on Thursday, March 30, 2023 for his role in paying hush money to a porn star. On Thursday evening, after news of the charges had been widely reported, the district attorney's office confirmed that Mr. Trump had been indicted and that prosecutors had contacted Mr. Trump's attorney to coordinate his surrender to authorities in Manhattan. Mr. Trump has for decades avoided criminal charges despite persistent scrutiny and repeated investigations, creating an aura of legal invincibility that the indictment now threatens to puncture. Mr. Bragg is the first prosecutor to indict Mr. Trump, but he might not be the last. Mr. Trump's actions surrounding his electoral defeat are now the focus of a separate federal investigation, and a Georgia prosecutor is in the final stages of an investigation into Mr. Trump's attempts to reverse the election results in that state. As Trump vies for the presidency for the third time, the Manhattan indictment, resulting from an almost 5-year investigation, ushers in a tumultuous new chapter in Mr. Trump's post-presidential life. Under normal circumstances, an indictment would deal a fatal blow to a presidential candidacy, but Mr. Trump is not a normal candidate. Mr. Trump's former fixer, Michael D. Cohen, is poised to play a pivotal role as a witness against him in the trial and is expected to be the star witness for Mr. Alvin L. Bragg, who is the Manhattan District Attorney. Michael D. Cohen, despite being a target for Mr. Trump's legal team, who will undoubtedly attempt to discredit him based on his previous offenses, prosecutors are likely to argue that Mr. Cohen had lied to protect Mr. Trump and that his account has remained constant for several years. Senator Marco Rubio, a Republican from Florida and ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, said this about Trump arraignment, that we are going to regret this for a very long time. Rubio argued the case will give a green light to other prosecutors, whether Republican or Democrat, to go after their political opponents. Rubio said, "Today, American politics crosses a line that it's never going to come back from after today, especially on the basis of how ridiculous these charges are." Rubio blasted the charges as absurd, noting that they are built on the testimony of a convicted liar, a jab at Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen, who pleaded guilty in 2018 to lying to Congress about plans to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. Judge Jeanine Pirro and Jessica Tarloff, presenters on The Five, an American panel talk show on Fox News Channel, has this to say on the case.
Judge, as the news of yesterday settled in, and you had today to think about it, what are your thoughts now?
You know, I woke up this morning and I said, maybe I missed something, but I didn't miss a thing. As I said yesterday, it was just a bunch of papers that were stapled together. The indictment is insufficient on its face. It is insufficient in terms of the statute of limitations. If you look at the first several counts, they are in February of 2017, which is beyond 5 years. I think it's the first 15 or 20 counts are outside the 5-year statute of limitations. We don't know what the crime is that they are complaining about, and we should. I mean, because an indictment is supposed to illustrate what it is that the defendant did. And if it's a federal crime, Bragg doesn't have jurisdiction to prosecute that. And if it's a state crime, which was the only thing that Bragg gave us insight into yesterday when he was asked, what is the underlying crime and why did you wait so long? He said, well, there's a New York election law. Well, I spent about 2 hours on the New York election law today. And it's clear to me that the New York election law only relates to campaigns for public office in the state of New York. He cannot try to bootstrap a New York state election law violation to raise this to a felony. State election laws do not apply to a presidential race. In addition to that, it's selective prosecution. It is duplicitous. There are 4 counts for 1 act. And you've got an intent that's in question. Did he intend to do it, that being Donald Trump, because he wanted to keep it from his wife and family, or for another reason? And the main witness is someone who's a perjurer per se. When he opens his mouth, you have to assume the guy is lying. And finally, this whole issue of the jurisdiction and the statute of limitations and the factual insufficiency, there's nothing in there that a defense attorney can prepare for. It's absurd. And let me just say one thing about Alvin Bragg, who made a fool of himself yesterday, as far as I'm concerned. He said, we cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct. Are you kidding? People are being stabbed, beaten, stabbed, brutalized, and murdered in New York City by career criminals who are being let out again and again. Felonies reduced to misdemeanors unless you're a Republican. This is a pathetic man who is not connected to reality. The only thing that I have a great concern about and that I'm wondering about is he not specifying the underlying crime? Because in the event that his case gets dismissed, because if he's any kind of lawyer at all, he knows this is an insufficient indictment. Is he giving Georgia and maybe Florida the ability to prosecute that crime that he thinks might apply to them as well without being barred by double jeopardy? Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that he could basically say, I'm not identifying it until I absolutely have to. In case the judge dismisses this, it'll give Georgia and Florida a chance to relitigate that issue that I haven't told you about.
Interesting. And Jesse, flimsy charges are sure to backfire, right? So if you have a flimsy charge, it backfires. And then what are the consequences of that? You sow deeper divisions in a country that's already pretty torn apart.
Yeah, way to go, Alvin. The Democrats are convinced that Donald Trump's a criminal. Yeah. That he's guilty of murder, rape, espionage, you name it, he's guilty of it. And they were waiting for Alvin Bragg to tell them what Donald Trump was guilty of, and he came out and he couldn't do it. It was like being there during a will reading and they found out they were being written out of the will. And they couldn't process it. So the word yesterday was disappointment. They were disappointed they didn't get the mugshot they wanted. They didn't get the violence in the streets that they wanted. They didn't get the handcuff shot that they wanted. They didn't get the cameras in the courtroom they wanted, and they didn't get an indictment worth a damn. The Democrats are driven crazy by the fact that Trump is innocent until proven guilty. So for the last 6 years, they've been trying to create a crime that he's guilty of. So Alvin Bragg, I'll give him credit, it was creative. He takes $130,000 and chops it up into 34 felony counts. And then he concocts this legal theory that has never been seen in the history of American jurisprudence. Am I using jurisprudence correctly?
Very well,
Thank
Jesse.
you. And no one can understand it. So the guy can't read a calendar also because all of the counts and the checks were written in 2017.
Yep.
So let me understand this, Alvin. You're saying he, in 2017, was trying to influence the 2016 election?
I can do that math.
You cannot do that. So the case is falling apart. Alvin Bragg is a dumb man. The jury's tainted. The judge is a Democrat donor. And the charges aren't going to stick. Yep. And also, by the way he filed this thing, Trump paid more taxes.
Can I say one more? This is just something I want to throw out. The judge said he wants to move as expeditiously as possible. How do you set a motion date December 4th? Right. This is April, May, June, July, August, September. I mean, I don't have enough fingers for that. They're trying to push it toward, the primary. Yeah.
Political analysts say the next steps in the case will likely have an impact on this 2020 presidential campaign. It's really important to remember that the primary season, which happens before the general election, starts in early February, said Dr. Susan McManus. Indeed, nowhere has two-tiered justice run amok more obscenely than Manhattan. Mike Pence in his interview told CNN in response to the Trump charges that this is the first time ever that an ex-president has been indicted. And the case is tied to his hush money payment to a porn star on the eve of the 2016 election. That this appears to be just one more example of the kind of two-tiered justice system that the American people have had enough of. It is true that American unity has faced many challenges in recent years, with various forms of separatism and calls for diversity causing divisions in society. The impeachment trial of former President Trump was a highly contentious event that further highlighted these divisions. However, it is important to maintain perspective and not lose sight of the fact that America has faced similar challenges in the past and has always emerged stronger. The country has a long history of overcoming internal divisions and finding ways to come together in pursuit of common goals. By focusing on what unites us rather than what divides us, we can continue to build a more resilient and prosperous nation. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.